All right. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. This is the introductory session to this robotics and bot design program that we are having. All thanks to my student Armaan. And Armaan will be taking the session. He will introduce you to this exciting new line of work and how you can benefit from it. The good thing is that you need minimal coding experience. So this whole summer camp, the design is basically on robotics process automation. And the tool we are going to use for this is Uipath Studio tool. And Armaan will obviously walk you through all the requirements. There are three main modules that we hope to cover during this whole session. The first one is programming foundation, then process automation, and then orchestrator. Honestly, I have no idea what these things are. So I'll just relegate that to Armaan to explain how we can learn, what we can learn here, and how we can develop software robots for different desktop, web, Excel, automation, basically anywhere we need digital workers, which is a relatively new idea, but it's a revolutionary idea. And Armaan is quite young, but I'm very proud of him that he has taken the initiative here and he has been working on this for a few years. So thank you so much, Armaan, for taking out the time. And everybody give a hands up for Armaan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Armaan, and I will be your teacher for programming using UiPath. And UiPath is a tool for robotic process automation, otherwise known as RPA. So if you don't know what that is, I have a quick video that will explain what exactly RPA is. Can everybody see my screen?
Hey, I'm Joey, and I'm one of the 30 AI voices from SpeechLab. You listened to this video until now, and you probably could.
Can everybody see my screen? Yes, okay.
Robotic Process Automation, RPA. That's some term, huh? Isaac Asimov, pictures of automobile assembly lines, and fields of people being harvested in the Matrix come to mind. Before we descend into the inevitable future ruled by our mechanical overlords, let's talk about RPA. Let's start with what robotic process automation is not. It's not actually robots. I know, right? Software people. Robotic process automation is software that helps a human automate a manual process. We use this technology every day. Hey Siri, what's the weather?
Here's the weather for today.
With a simple voice command, a robot, Siri in this case, performs a number of predetermined tasks. It gets your current physical location, queries a weather service for data, and returns that data to the user. What would have taken you 3 or 4 clicks was given to you in a single command. We use these capabilities every day in our personal lives when we order pizza, play a music playlist, ask Siri something, etc. So why not apply these same capabilities to our workday? I typically group RPA into 2 types: desktop user automations and process automations. Let's dissect each a bit more. Desktop automations are probably the closest to the Siri example. These are automations initiated by users via a click that remove several manual steps. They're often used to tie many systems together. Let's say you work on a finance team and a vendor calls in looking for a payment. You open the accounting system and pull up that vendor's information, but you also need the electronic version of that invoice. Well, that's in another system that's not connected to the accounting software. With a desktop automation, our helpful and not at all murderous robot friend can go fetch that for us, just like the weather. We were able to pull together all the information we needed to answer the question in a very simple way. What you didn't have to do was start up the other system where the documents live, log in, navigate to the invoices area, execute a search, and then open it. Shorter phone call? Time saved. Easy answer for the vendor? Better customer service. Process automations use the same software robots as desktop automations, but in order to completely automate human tasks. These robots sit on computers waiting for work just like a human worker would. This robo-coworker performs the exact same data entry work as an employee would using the exact same user interface. Let's stick with the invoice example from before. The goal of the invoice process is that the data is entered into an accounting system so that the bill can get paid. Sometimes this happens with a person looking at a piece of paper or a digital copy that has been scanned. Either way, the human looks at the invoice and keys in the data. Process automations hand that tedious manual work to a robot who is happy to do it. You might be asking yourself, can robots really do all of this? They absolutely can. Software robots have several advantages over humans when it comes to manual tasks. Because they are a digital workforce, they can be expanded and reduced to meet fluctuating volumes of work without the pesky hiring and firing stuff. Does your work volume grow during tax season or holidays? Add a few more bots and then turn them off when the amount decreases. They also never take breaks or PTO. Their data entry is often much faster because robots are excellent typists and don't make keying errors. Finally, they always follow the business rules to the letter. There are many processes in an organization that are not the right fit for RPA. How do you identify the right ones? I look in two places. First, where humans can provide more strategic value, but are bogged down with manual, tedious work. Second, at the processes that are critical to an organization's success. These are processes that typically involve bringing in or sending out money. For example, onboarding a new customer, closing a loan, or paying an invoice. There are many things a robot cannot do. They cannot empathize with a customer on the phone. They cannot think strategically about how to make an organization or a process better. Humans are the most important part of our organizations for this reason. They are not important for manual, tedious, repetitive tasks. Look, at some point in the future, robots will rise up and kill us all. But until they do, we should put them to work and let humans get back to more valuable tasks.
So does anybody have any questions of what RPA is? Okay, okay, I'll continue. So I will introduce you to this exciting line of work, and the best with minimal coding experience. Even with no programming background, you'll learn programming concepts with the easiest and fastest minimal coding. Using the Uipath Studio tool, you will learn how you can develop software robots for desktop, web, Excel, and email automation to create digital workers, bots, to give value to your work. Here I have a slide of all the topics I will teach in this course. So we have the this part is part of the basic foundations, and you have these, this, this, this. And so these are all the topics I will teach. Now, I'm gonna show you a program in UiPath. So I'm gonna go on my alt account real quick, if that's okay. Oh, you guys can't see the slides? Okay. Let me show you. See the slide now? Okay. So this is just a quick overview of the topics I will teach. So we have these topics and we have the rest of the slides have topics on them. Don't worry if you feel overwhelmed. I will easily teach all of these topics. Okay. So now I'm going to go in my alt account to start a process on Uipath. So here is how Uipath looks like. Also a side note, I am certified in this, so I know all the steps and how to do everything. So how you start Uipath, you click process, then you start a new process. Here I'll just name it first lesson. And then you can save it wherever you want. So here's the interface of UiPath. So if you want to start a workflow, then you have different options right now. Only worry about sequence. So the sequence is like an activity that has a set of activities in it. So a set of steps. So here I created a new sequence. So, and then over here on the left side, we have projects, which displays all your workflows and the .NET files. Then we have activities where is all the magic happens. So the first activity that I'll teach you is message box. So message box is used to display information. And any text that you want to display has to be in quotes, unless it's in a variable, but I will talk about that later. So let's just say, hello world. So if I just, since it's in the message box, when I run this program, which is over here, you click a run file, it will display hello world. So does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, I'll continue then. So then the next thing I'll teach you is variables. So instead of having text just quoted like that, that's not a really good practice. You want to have like values stored in variables, and you probably know what variables are in algebra, right? So it stores a value. So here I'll create a new variable. I'll call it text. And the first type I'll teach you about a string, which is anything text-based. So hello world is text-based. So we want a string variable. And so now here we put the value and we'll type in hello world. Also, the scope is just where you want that variable's home to be. So we want it to be inside this sequence. So now, instead of typing hello world here, we can just type in text. And when we run this file, it will also say hello world because that's what the value of text is. So now you know about text variables, strings. And what about numbers? So for numbers, we use a different type a variable. This one's called integer. So integer is if you want to do any whole numbers. So let's say I have 10 and I display number. It will display 10. But let's say I want to do like a basic equation. Let's say addition. So now we'll have number 2. We'll rename this number 1. So remember to change to an integer because you're working with numbers. And let's just say 10 and 3. So now we want to add these together. So how we add these together? We use a activity called assign. So assign is used to give variables value in the middle of a sequence. So while the sequence is running, it will assign the variables a certain value. So let's also create another new variable called result. And we'll change this into a string, an integer. And as you can see, it has no value. That's because we're going to assign it here. So we'll do result equals number 1 plus number 2. And then in the message box, we'll have result. So now when we run this, it's going to show 13. So that's whole numbers. Now for decimal, for numbers with decimal points in it, you want to use a variable called, first I'm going to rename this decimal. Okay. Now for this variable type, you want to do a double. And sometimes when you click variable type, it won't be here and you're going to have to browse for types. So don't be overwhelmed by all the variables. You rarely use that many variables. So I searched up double and now I go to system.double. So that's how you find the double type variable. And that the variable type is with decimals. So now we'll do decimal 2. And over here, we'll have decimal result. Somebody asked the question, which software this is? This is Uipath. Just the Uipath Studio, more specifically. So for the decimal 1 value, let's say we have 3.3. And then for decimal 2, we'll say 6.6. So we'll do the same thing this time, just inside a result, we'll use decimal result. And over here, we'll have decimal 1 plus decimal 2. And then over here, for the text, we'll put decimal result. So now when this runs, 3.3 plus 6.6 should give us 9.9, and it does. So those are the 3 basic variable types that you will learn right now. And so now I have some examples. Oh, somebody asked what type of variable is double. That's if you want to use a number, but it's a decimal value. So whole numbers are for integers and decimal points are for doubles. So over here, I have some examples. So I already have this process called examples with some projects in it. So first one is equations. And over here we have some basic equations. And the first set of activities will add inum and inum2 to iResult. So that's 1 plus 2, and it will display 3. And then for this one, it will be 6.6 plus 3.3 equals 9.9. So when we run this, it will give 3 because 1 plus 2 equals 3. And it will give 9.9 because 6.6 plus 3.3 equals 9.9. So when we run this, as you can notice, these are hard-coded values, which means you just set the values. There's no input whatsoever. So there's an activity where you can let the user decide what value the numbers will be. So here is a activity called input dialog. And for the input dialog, there's 4 things you have to fill out. So the first one is the title. So for this title, I'll just type in inum1 because that's what it is. But remember, it has to be in quotes because you're talking about text, right? So here's inum1. And then for the label, the label is what you want to tell the user. So we'll say, please type in a whole number. And then the value entered is what the output is going to be. So whatever the user types in to the text box, as you can see, we have text box here. Multiple choice is also another option you can give the user, but right now we're using text box. So whatever the user will type into the text box that displays, that value will be stored inside whatever variable you put here. So over here for the variable, we'll put in inum1 because that's what we want the value to be stored in. And we don't need these values anymore. So you can just delete them from here because you want it to be dynamic, which means like the user can determine what it's going to be. It can be multiple scenarios. So, and we're going to just copy and paste this into here for inum2 and just real quick, just change on some stuff. So that's inum2. And then here we can please type in another whole number. And then now iResult will be whatever the user typed in first plus whatever the user typed in second. And then it will display iResult. So now we'll do the same thing for B results. So we'll just paste 2 of these here because we just need to change stuff to D. And because that's why it's good to have variables like named. And if they're like, don't make them so complex because like now you can just easily change a few stuff and it works. So D num1, sorry, D num2 here. And then you can just please type in another decimal number. And then here can be D num2. And then for here, we'll do the first decimal number. So same thing, just D num1 this time. Please type in a decimal number. And then just change this to D num1. So now when we run this, it will be dynamic. And so it will ask me for the first whole number. So the first whole number I'll type in, let's say 5. Then the second one, let's say 3.
So 5 plus 3 equals 8. So it's different this time. And now please type in a decimal number. So let's say I do 1.2. And then I do, let's say 2.4. So it'll be 3.6. Would anybody like to give their own input and run this program themselves? So what input would you like to see in here? Hello? Type in the chat whatever variable, whatever number you want to put in the variable's value. Okay, somebody put 73 and 21. So 73 and 21. So that gives 94 because it's different every single time you put in an input. So now would somebody different like to put in a decimal numbers? Okay, we have 32.4. And what about the second decimal number? 16.7. Okay. So we'll add these together and it will give 49.1. So as you can see, it's different every single time you give an input. So it makes it dynamic. It's not hard coded anymore. Like it depends on whatever the user puts in. So that's really interesting. So now I'll show you two other programs. Oh, actually, first of all, any questions so far? Is anybody confused? Is anybody confused on everything that's happened so far? Because I know it's a lot if you have no programming experience. It's okay to ask questions. Okay, I don't see any. Where have you opened this part from? Remember in the beginning where I created a new process. So I already had a process set up for this class. So, and you can like save them and you can open them up later, like over here. Like these are all my processes. I just clicked the examples process. I didn't create a new one because it's recent. I just opened it. So, okay, I'm going to move on to the other two programs, which I'm not going to teach you how to do this. This is just to show you what you will create later on in this course. So I'll do calculator. So I'm going to run this program. This program is going to automate on a calculator, which is a type of desktop automation. So, and it will give input of whatever whatever the user types in, it will give that input and type it on the calculator. So I made this program to show you how desktop automation works. Because calculator is a desktop application. So I'm going to run this. So would anybody like to give input for a number? Remember 1 through 9, because that's what the calculator is. Somebody has a question. So what are we doing here is basically writing a flowchart made easy instead of full code. Yes, we're right now we're doing a sequence. There's also a flowchart option. I prefer sequence. I will teach you flowchart later, so whichever one you're more comfortable with. But yes, it's basically easy activities, so you don't have to write lines of code. It's already there for you. You just have to edit few stuff, and which is why this is very easy and it's really good for people who have minimal coding experience. Okay. No problem. So, does anybody have want to put in input? 1 through 9. Okay. I don't see anybody in the chat putting input. I'll just put it myself then. So we'll do. Oh, okay. Somebody's in chat. 3. Okay. So 3. What operation would you like to do? Plus, minus, multiply, or divide? Divide. Okay. And what would you want the second number to be? 15. Okay. 15 doesn't work because remember, it's a calculator thing. So it's 1 through 9. 7 or 6 came before 7, so I'm gonna do 6. So we have 3 divided by 6 and it equal 0.5, and then the result is 0.5. So as you can see, it automated this calculator. It typed in, it clicked this button and it clicked those buttons. So you can automate it on any desktop app, most of the desktop applications. So here, that was an example of desktop application, desktop automation. So here is an example of web automation. So here I'm going to use Amazon on Chrome in this case. You can use a variety of browsers. I 100% know that Chrome and Edge work. I don't know about other browsers, but I will look into that. But here I just use as an example of Amazon. It can be any website as long as it's compatible with the browser, and you're going to have to install an extension on the browser. So what item would you like to search on Amazon? Okay. I'll just type in the input then. Okay, so fridge. So as you can see, it opened up Amazon.com and it searching through fridges, and these are the first 5 items. Also, I did not take account to sales. So if an item had a sale on it, then it wouldn't pop up because that's a whole separate interface. But if there was no sale, this is the first 5 items without any sales. So the first 5 items price on without any sale. So that was an example of web automation because it was a web application like Chrome, Amazon. So does anybody have any questions about the basics of UiPath? Because I know you won't understand the calculator and the Amazon workflow I made because they're stuff that you don't know yet, like data tables and selectors. But I will be happy to teach you all of these easy steps of how to learn the simple tool. It's really fun and really interesting. So, but does anybody have any questions? So does nobody have any questions? Are we all clear? So I see no questions in the chat. So that's great. So you will learn all these programming tools. Like there's a lot of activities, as you can see. I will teach you all of this variety of programming using this easy, simple tool called Uipath Studio, which is a type of robotic process automation. So okay, that's it for this class. I hope you find this very interesting, and I will be happy to teach you. Thanks, bye.